Good morning, Unleashed Lund loyalists. Thanks for tuning in live each weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. Remember, please like and subscribe and listen where you get your podcasts. Be on the lookout for Lund loyalists perks by joining the club. And if you really want your comments read during the show, you can use supers and stickers. Now, as close to on time as he gets, here's Johnny.
Hang on. What's happening? We're doing a YouTube exclusive post for the Warriors because I told you this morning we would. I gotta get a new open for nighttime programming. Good morning, listeners. It's not 8 a.m. It's 10 p.m. On a little late for the post game. Was watching the game late because I was doing some work in the studio and no need to watch the second half. The Warriors lose 123-117 the Kings. And I think, we got a lot of Kings fans in the house, and they watch every day, so I wanted to do a, bit of a rivalry with the Kings and the Warriors. So they lose 123-117. As you can see, we still have a chalkboard, but we made it yellow tonight for the Warriors and the Kings. So the Warriors led by 17 at the half. The third quarter comes around, though, and Sac outscores the Warriors 37-20, as you see there. Golden State with 8 third quarter turnovers. DeRozan goes crazy, gets 19 in the third, 32 in the game. Steph Curry disappears. And remember the other day, and I got a bunch of flack for this because I said, look, I love Steph. I have no negative things to say about Steph. Steph is the ultimate CEO. I love Steph. If I could have a son, he would be Steph. If I could have a son-in-law, he would be Steph. If I had a guy that was going to run a business or endorse my product, it would be Steph. But he can't carry a team like he used to, especially when there's basically so many injuries with the Warriors. And that's not an excuse. I'm just saying what it is. Without Draymond Green and Kuminga and Podz and some guys out there. And 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿 had a nice game tonight. But Curry goes 1 for 5 for 2 points in the second half. That's clearly not going to get it done starter-wise. Sacramento, and pressure friends with this one, Sacramento outscored the Warriors 105-64. With the starters, second half, Sacramento 75, the Warriors 52. And now the Warriors are 21-22 and 11th in the Western Conference. So that's what happened tonight in Sacramento, 123-117. Sports fan says, and good to see a sports fan. I'm glad you are here. I know you're a Sac fan. There you go. Light the beam. That's why I came on, because I wanted to check everything out. You are 100% right, Anthony. They suck. They do suck. They can't finish. Look, let's acknowledge the injuries, all right? Now, okay, I've done that. When I'm watching 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, and I'm looking at the box score right now, and why don't I just pop it up on the screen for you? So let me go back here. I'll just pop it up, and we'll do a little screen watching here for just a quick second here as I'll share the screen with you, and we'll do a little box score looking as the Warriors again lose tonight. So there's your little there's the box score. Andrew Wiggins pretty much carried the team offensively. Like I said, 64 offensive points from the starters, 105 for Sacramento, and DeRozan did it in the second half, 19 in the third quarter, 32 for the game. But then Sabonis, who has struggled at times against the Warriors in his career, has 26. Malik Monk has 20, and De'Aaron Fox was largely under control, except for the fourth quarter where he did get to the free throw line, and he scored 14. So he had an ugly game, but when it counted, and I tell you this all the time, it's not how many you score, it's when you score them. And I thought Steph at some point would come alive in the fourth quarter. He didn't. He even tried a heat check, even though he hadn't been hot, just because he hadn't touched the ball in the second half, and he threw one up late. Did not go in, and so there you go. The Warriors lose. Yes, there's injuries, but there are other major issues. And as we big picture this whole thing, they're going to talk about things at the deadline February 6th. Today's the 22nd, so we're just a couple of weeks away from that happening. And as I look at this roster, and you do too, as well, I'll leave the box score up there for a second. Andrew Wiggins is having a great season, no question. Gary Payton hustles, but they got guys like that. Looney got sick, didn't finish the game. Buddy Hield had one of his better games in a while, probably going up to Sacramento motivated him, but he hasn't been great. As I said the other day, typical of a Warriors offseason signing, you get excited for the first few weeks, and then you go, oh, you're Dario Saric, I forgot, or you're Buddy Hield, I forgot, or go on down the line. Moses Moody, I wish would play more. He was just okay. Trayce Jackson-Davis isn't a bad player, but he's a rotational piece. I told you when they made the Dennis Schroeder trade that I didn't love it, that he wasn't going to put up the numbers that he put up in Brooklyn because he just wasn't going to see the minutes. And you look tonight, he plays 21 minutes, scores 7 points, 5 assists, largely just And then because of the injuries and the sickness to Looney, they have to play Quentin Post, who Bob, for some reason, was acting like he was the second coming for just a second there. 𝐬𝐿 Santos had a nice night tonight, and that was just about it. I do struggle, even though Bob Fitzgerald's been very nice to me, and personally, I like Bob. I just struggle watching the games, to be completely honest with you, on a local level, because if you had to take a drink for every time, and let me take this off the screen. You've seen it. Actually, let me go to second and third quarter. First half, Warriors are absolutely dominating. So there's the first half numbers for you. 65-48, complete domination by the Warriors. They're doing great. Everything's great. Then the third quarter happens, 37-20, and you can see there, even though the three ball wasn't falling for either team, Sacramento almost doubles up the Warriors, 15-26 versus 8 of 20. 8 turnovers for the Warriors in that quarter as well. 8 turnovers for the Warriors in the third quarter. That did them in. And then down the stretch, Sacramento just outperformed the Warriors. You're looking at let me go to the fourth quarter here. Steph Curry, 1 of 4, 2 points. He's supposed to carry you. Wiggins did a nice job, but nobody else showed up in the fourth quarter. And that's essentially all she wrote. As I said, De'Aaron Fox struggled for a lot of the game, but he got 8 points, got to the line 6 times. And just back to what I was going to say. So there's your box score. Back to what I was going to say this for a second. If you drank every time that Bob Fitzgerald complained about the officials tonight, you'd have been drunk by halftime. It's nauseating, and I don't know how people deal with it. They have such a great product and have for so many years, not tonight and not much of this year, not last year or the year before, but for this run, they've had such a great product on the floor, and to have a product where someone is constantly complaining about the officials, when anybody who knows the game, you're watching the game, the Warriors are settling. They have settled for years. They're a settling team. And then Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox, and you're watching Sacramento, and they're aggressive going to the rim, and that's how you get calls. So, look, you can complain all you want about the Warriors not getting calls or the free throws, which Bob did at a really high level tonight. Or you can just watch the game and see exactly what's going on. I understand it, but it's not why they lost tonight. They turned the ball over 8 times in the third quarter. They couldn't throw it in the ocean, which is a lot of the problems that they've seen. Nobody else can shoot the basketball a lot of nights besides Curry. Now, Buddy Hield did go 5 of 9 from 3 and 6 of 12, and Wiggins was 5 of 11. So they weren't terrible tonight. Shot 46.7% from the field, but free throw wise, 9 of 13 versus 30 of 32. So there's a discrepancy. You're minus 21 in free throw makes. And therefore, the rationale for some people is, well, they must have gotten jobbed by the officials. I don't know. Tim Donaghy probably didn't officiate tonight's game. In fact, I'm pretty sure he didn't. And so if you just watch the game and watch the team who was more aggressive, the more aggressive team was Sacramento, was the Kings. So look, I'm not defending anything here. I'm simply saying that the more aggressive team got to the free throw line a lot, especially in the fourth quarter. And I say this as a philosophy all the time. I just don't buy the fact that officials cost you games. They didn't cost the Warriors the game tonight. I know that Steve Kerr got a technical late. I know Steve Kerr was fired up. I think that Steve Kerr was trying to get it so that he could fire up his own team because they couldn't get it going. So 123-117, they get badly outscored in the second half. Starters didn't show up. And if a team is as banged up as the Warriors are, and they only get 1 of 5 for 2 points in the second half from Steph Curry, and give the Kings a lot of that credit because they looked around and said, we're gonna put 4 guys on Curry. What am I gonna do? 𝐬𝐿 Santos, go ahead and beat us if you want to. Andrew Wiggins, go for it. Like, there's nobody on the floor that we respect. There's 30, and that's about it. So I got to believe that this is another game where, and I haven't heard the post game yet, and we'll play it for you tomorrow at 8 a.m. on the show. But I'm sure that Steph Curry is going to be asked the same damn questions that he's asked every single night. And at some point, as cool, composed, CEO-like as Steph is, at some point he's just going to go, I'm out of here. Like, move me, trade me. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous because, yeah, he struggled 1 of 5 for 2 points in the second half. But why the hell would you cover anybody else on the entire court? So anyway, Give me your thoughts. We are YouTube exclusive tonight on this whole thing, and we'll let you know. Anthony, thank you very much. Middlecoff is a longtime friend of mine, and we chopped it up pretty good today on a bunch of topics in regards to the 49ers. I put out a bunch of promos on it. The big thing that caught everybody's ear was, of course, that he was ripping Brock Purdy, and he wasn't ripping Brock Purdy. He was just saying for the money that he's going to get paid, he's not a top 10 quarterback. And I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that, but all the Purdy apologists came out, and I'm not anti Brock Purdy at all. I like Brock Purdy. I've said the whole time on the show consistently that I think he's going to bounce back when he gets some players back. But what that means is that a lot of guys are going to be like, okay, well, we'll see what he does. Anyway, as far as tonight's game is concerned, thank you, Anthony. Thanks, sports fan, for coming in as well. Let me pop this up for Warriors played a perfect first half, and then DeRozan killed them in the third. Kings hung around after playing horrible and came back. Tough loss for the Warriors. I would say that the Warriors did a lot of this to themselves. They're up 17 at the half, and you know this as an NBA fan. If you're up 17 at the half, that doesn't mean a whole lot. A few threes, 4 or 5 threes, a couple of stops, you're back in the ball game. It used to be years ago that, man, you're up 17, 20, 25 points. No matter at one point during the game, it's going to be hard for the other team to come back, but not now. So they came out in the third quarter. They committed 8 turnovers. That's on the Warriors. That's not free throw shooting. That's not anything that really the Kings did. But what started to happen was they started to get some momentum. They hit some shots, and neither team really was great shooting the ball in the third quarter. Neither could throw it in the ocean from 3, but then the Kings started saying, okay, we're not going to jack the ball from everywhere. We're going to start being aggressive, go to the rim, get some 2-point shots, get some free throws to go, get some confidence. And then in the fourth quarter, the Kings, I wouldn't say they ran away with it, but they hung around. And then at the end, they got some balls to fall. Plus, Malik Monk got aggressive. So that's really what it came down to is Fox got aggressive, and the Warriors couldn't get the ball to Curry, and the Kings were all too able to say, if 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 Santos wants to beat us, if Wiggins wants to beat us, go right ahead. But it's not going to be number 30. And because there's no Draymond to initiate the offense, and because there's nobody else to really help them, Kuminga and all that, now all of a sudden the Kings get a game that the Warriors had a great chance of winning. But that's what happened. And I agree with you. As a Kings fan, they went out and they won the basketball game, started getting some momentum. Crowd starts to get in the game. You hit a few shots. And you look at what the Warriors are doing right now, and it's a struggle. They're 21-22. They're 11th in the Western Conference. And as we come up on the trade deadline, and again, we'll talk about this tomorrow at about 8 a.m., there's just not going to be a whole lot of discussion about the Warriors making a trade or being one player away. You got to be realistic in this whole thing. And I'm looking at this team, especially tonight, and I know, again, we will acknowledge the injuries. If you go too far with injuries, as far as the Warriors are concerned, to me, it's an excuse. They were a 500 team or less with Kuminga and with Green and with Podziemski and everybody else. So it's not a surprise. I mean, if they have those guys, do they win tonight's game? It's a 6-point loss, maybe. But the reality is that 30's on the court, and there's nobody else to threaten beyond Steph Curry, and that's one of the reasons they lost the game. So, again, 123-117. Warriors led by 17 at the half. The sack comes out 37-20 in the third quarter. Thank you very much, Warriors, for 8 third-quarter turnovers. DeRozan absolutely tore them apart. 19 points in the third quarter, 32 for the game, and they couldn't get the ball to Curry. 1 of 5, 2 points in the second half. Starters, Sacramento 105, Warriors 64. Second half, Sacramento 75-52, and that's where it puts the Warriors at 21-22, or a lovely 11th place in the Western Conference. So give me your thoughts on tonight's game as the Warriors go down and lose tonight to go back below 500. Andrew says the Kings got help by the refs to get back in the game. I just don't buy it. I mean, if you're watching the local broadcast, maybe you're influenced by Bob Fitzgerald. As I said before, if you drank every time Bob complained about the officials tonight, you'd have been drunk. You'd have had to drink about 92 shots. I'm not saying the officials are perfect, but if you watch the game, the most aggressive team, especially in the second half, got to the line. Malik Monk was going. Sabonis was going inside. They made a concerted effort in the second half to go to the rim. That's what they did, and they got rewarded by the officials. And so what happens is the Warriors, if you're a Warriors fan, you watch the game and you get influenced by what Bob says. And the reality of it is that the Warriors settled for a ton of shots tonight. They weren't going to the rim. They weren't being aggressive. They weren't getting calls, and it was because the most aggressive team will get the calls. And that's exactly what happened. And if there's a complaint, 8 turnovers in the third quarter, a lot of, even Curry shot in the fourth quarter because he wasn't getting any opportunities to shoot because, again, the Kings were just saying, we'll put 3 guys on you. We don't care. Nobody else is going to threaten us. I mean, if 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 gets 16, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 gets 16. That's what happened. Wiggins had a nice game. Buddy Hield was okay. It would be nice to see more from him. I think he was probably jacked up that he went back to Sacramento. But reality is that that's what happens when you have as many injuries as they have, and you're not threatened by anybody else but Curry on the court. And until they get Kuminga back, which Steve Kerr said today isn't going to be for a while, and we know the situation with Draymond Green's calf is going to take a while. So reality is going to hit, and we got to start talking about this. February 6th is right around the corner. They're not a player away. They're not 2 players away. I mean, unless those players are, MVP or Jokic, unless it's Jokic, they're not a player away, and they're not 2 players away. So I'm trying to get Kevin O'Connor, this guy from Yahoo, who wrote a piece about blowing up the Warriors. And while I'm not at that point, and they're not blowing up the Warriors in the middle of the season, 𝐬𝐝 is not going to blow up the Warriors on February 6th. Now, what he does in the offseason, when he has an opportunity to think about it and do something about it and get marketing in place, if they were to move, some of their key players like a Draymond Green or heaven forbid a Steph Curry, that's not happening on February 6th. But I do think you have to look at this whole thing and say, okay, let's be real. What reality of the situation is, you can sit and, as a Warrior fan, wonder what it's going to be like if you get Kuminga and if you get Draymond, or when you get Draymond and when you get Kuminga and when you get 𝐵ojenski. They've had those guys. They've had those guys this year, and they're a 500 team with them. They're a 500 team without them. So I know what you're thinking as an optimistic Warriors fan, which is, if we had those guys tonight, yeah, maybe. But they've been bad with them. They've been bad without them. They got off to the 12-3 start. They're now 21-22. So do the math. They're not a very good basketball team with or without those guys. And, if they were the Warriors team of the past and they were up 17 at the half, they're not going to blow that game. But it's a totally different deal. That's where they are. That's reality for the Warriors. Thank you, 2026. Love you back, my friend. Love you. Love you too. Kings are, I'll give you this. I mean, the Kings are not that really good of a team. They're going to be a first-round exit. It's possible. But right now, Doug Christie, who right when Mike Brown got fired, I was like, Doug Christie's not a better coach than Mike Brown. And everybody complained and yelled and screamed. And I have a philosophy, because I've seen it firsthand in my life, which is, sometimes the message has been heard enough and so many times that guys just kind of tune it out. And Mike Brown's a better coach than Doug Christie. It's a small sample size, so I don't know what kind of coach Doug Christie is going to be for Sacramento, but I know this. They're playing hard for him. They're not giving up. I mean, that's kind of the kind of guy that Doug Christie was. I mean, he was a good athlete when he came out of Pepperdine and was a nice NBA basketball player, but he was a hard-nosed role player is what he was for a lot of his career. And so you're starting to see situations where the Kings are kind of playing like that. And maybe Mike Brown had told all the, win one for the Gipper stories that he was going to tell. So I'm not saying he's a better coach, Doug Christie, but sometimes having a different voice helps. So we'll see. I mean, when you say that the Kings aren't a very good team, I mean, look up and down the Western Conference. I mean, I'll look real quick at the standings and I can pop them up for you as well. I was just looking at them before we went on the air here. Oklahoma City is great. Houston's really good, having a really good season. I don't know if I'd be that afraid of them in the playoffs. They're 29-14. Memphis is really good. Denver is solid. They need some more depth. I don't know how Sacramento. I don't know how the Clippers are doing it. I know that Harden's having a good year and Norman Powell and guys like that. The Lakers are the Lakers, but they're now 5 over. Kings now are 23-20. Minnesota's not a great team. Dallas with Luka is sliding. And then there's Phoenix, who's in the same situation as the Warriors. So the Warriors right now with their 22 losses are 4 back of the 6 or getting out of the play-in. And I'm not saying they're great, because I've said this before, and if you watch the show with any regularity, this is what they are. This is the 3rd season now in a row that they're fighting to be not a play-in team. That's what they are. So they're a play-in team, but they're 4 back of the 6. My point in saying all that is you could probably throw I'm going to put the Clippers in there too. The Clippers, the Lakers, the Kings, Minnesota, Dallas, especially without Luka. If they get Luka back, it's different. Phoenix and the Warriors into a bag, and however those teams came out, I think they're interchangeable. From Clippers, Lakers, Sac, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix, and the Warriors, they're kind of interchangeable, all those teams. The only great team really in the conference is Oklahoma City. And then I would put Houston, Memphis, and Denver kind of in the same boat. And then from, like I said, 6 to 11, 5 to 11, even if you want to include the Clippers, they're 6 over 500. If you want, I think 5 to 11, you could interchange those teams, and you could even throw you can even throw San Antonio in there, even though they're 3 under. Let's say that San Antonio were to get a veteran. I don't think they're going to get Jimmy Butler. I think that's going to be the Suns, and they're going to ship Bradley Beal out. They did that deal with Utah where they got the first round picks. But the West, outside of the top 4 teams in the conference, and certainly the top 1 team in Oklahoma City, who's 36-7, it's not exactly flush with greatness. This isn't the glory days of the Western Conference where you went, 6 or 7 or 8 deep. I think you go 1 gap, 2, 3, 4 gap, and then 5. I think by the end of the season, as we look at the Clippers, the Lakers, Sacramento, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix, Golden State, I think they're going to kind of end up in some certain of an order. Now, could the Warriors? I think the Warriors could be as high as 5. The Warriors could be as low as even they could finish behind San Antonio. And the only complete hot garbage in the Western Conference is Portland, New Orleans, and Utah. That's how I kind of see everything working out. So, look, it's not a great night for the Warriors. They're not one player away. I think it would be malpractice if the Warriors were to go out and, as Steph said, mortgage their future, because there's no future to mortgage. Jonathan Kuminga and picks, I guess, if you want to call that mortgaging your future. You already mortgaged the future when you traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. You already started down that road. And then in terms of one player away, is Jokic on the block? Because if Jokic isn't on the block, you're not one player away. So, Daniel, you're late, man. I did this whole thing because I knew there were Kings fans out there, and I thought, you know what? It's Kings Warriors. I'll do some post game because I know Daniel's a Kings fan, and I didn't want it to seem like I was hiding until tomorrow at 8 a.m. Just kidding. Sorry, I'm late. Like to be, no problem. I'm completely kidding. I don't care. See, I'm with you, MF49. I think the NBA is kind of a mess. I mean, I look at the Eastern Conference. Obviously Cleveland, Boston. I think the Knicks are a legit championship contender with Karl Anthony Towns. Milwaukee has an upside there. They might make a trade. It's kind of cool to see Detroit be decent. I mean, you're going all the way down, Orlando, if they could get healthy. Miami's a mess. Chicago's a mess. The Sixers are a complete dumpster fire. Brooklyn shot, blah, blah, blah. Terrible. I mean, Washington 6-36. There's a handful of teams that are championship contenders, and we may get deep into the playoffs. And Cleveland, Boston, New York, Milwaukee are left in the West. And Oklahoma City, Houston, Memphis, and Denver are left in the West. We're going to get ourselves some pretty good playoff series. But after that, there's just not championship teams. They don't go 8 deep in both conferences. They rarely do. I understand that. But right now, there is a clear upper class, a little bit of a middle class, a lot of lower class, and then some people that are like, what are you doing? I guess you're tanking. I don't know what you're going to do. But anyway, not good. I agree with you, sports fan. Warriors fans have to be more realistic with themselves. It's over. I get that. This is just the sense I get. I think that Warriors fans understand that. I think that the players, that's why you've heard so much over the last couple of weeks from Steph Curry, and he does not want to sit on a mediocre basketball team. So at some point, not this season, but I think he'll probably lay the seeds, and I wouldn't be completely shocked. And I've never thought this up until the last maybe week or 10 days. I think that at some point, Steph Curry in this offseason, because February 6th is not when you trade a Steph Curry. I think at some point in this offseason, Steph and his representatives are going to go to Joe Lacob and go to the Warriors and say, look, unless there's some big major trade on the horizon, there are no Kevin Durant loopholes anymore like there were. What are you going to do? And if he doesn't like the answer, I think he's going to say, look, I'm not going to do this publicly. I'm going to come back to the organization at some point. I'm going to do this in the most Steph Curry classy way possible. You got to move me. We got I got to go somewhere else. I want to win. I have a legacy, and my legacy isn't how much money I can make. And my legacy isn't I've got to stay with one team. Steph Curry's greatness, or what he's going to go down as, it's already set. But he said this many times, he wants to win championships, and I just don't see it. I mean, 2022 was a complete surprise. There's no question about it. But do you see this team doing anything like that? I just don't see it. I don't see this team, and I don't see the trade out there that they're going to make. And we don't need to go over the names because we've done it a million times already. There's just not that player out there. And unless the other thing, and I said this the other day on the show, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but you either got to be really good or really bad, and they're really in the middle. I mean, if you look at the standings right now, they're really in the middle, which is, I know they're at the bottom, but what I'm saying is 21-22, 11-11 at home, 10-11 on the road. I mean, that's what it is. 15-14 in the conference. I mean, they're literally the dictionary definition of mediocre, which means you can't be bad enough to get the best players, and you can't be good enough to be taken seriously as a contender. And I know Steph the other day in a press conference said, we got to get in, and we know we can beat anybody. You used to be able to. And part of it was a mental game that the Warriors walked onto the floor, and it was like, damn, it's the Warriors. And teams just don't have that fear of them anymore. They don't walk into a building and a young basketball team like, Oklahoma City says, damn, it's the Warriors, or Houston, or Memphis. Memphis doesn't respect the Warriors in that way anymore. They act like it all the time. Houston sure as hell doesn't. These teams don't. Denver's won a championship since 2 years ago. They're not going to – Jokic isn't going to go into a game against the Warriors and go, damn, we can't beat Draymond Green and 37-year-old Steph Curry. So I don't mean to be all gloom and doom tonight. I apologize. I really do. But I know there's injuries, and again, I want to acknowledge that. But you watch this game tonight, and you can see the frustration in Steve Kerr, and he gets the technical foul trying to fire up the team because they're circling the drain in the second half of this game, and he thinks, I got to get myself a technical and try to fire these guys up. There's nobody to fire up. There's no Draymond Green, and there's no Kuminga, and there's no help for 30. And so Sacramento, I mean, it's not really hard. You and I could come up with a defensive game plan against the Warriors tonight. Guys, we're triple teaming 30. He is not to get the ball. He is not to be able to breathe. If you don't cover him like a blanket, then I'll tell you what, you're out of the game immediately, because Guy Santos and Andrew Wiggins and whomever they're going to put in the game, that's fine. Those guys beat us. I go home and I can sleep at night. 30 beats us with a team like they have tonight with the injuries they have. Absolutely, positively not. I will not allow it. So it's pretty easy. The game plan's pretty easy. You knew it. I knew it. So it's a problem. Hi, Christopher. Very good to see you. I agree there isn't a move to make to be contenders, but is there a move that will set up a bigger move for next year, or is there hope to pray for Cooper Flagg? That is a tremendous question, and I'm glad you're here. And that was kind of my tongue-in-cheek thing the other night, or the other day, I should say, on the show. We are live 8 a.m. Pacific every single weekday, by the way. That was kind of my tongue-in-cheek the other day, is why not come up with a phantom injury for Curry? And I know he's in his age 37 season and he doesn't have much time, but there's only a few ways you can get better in the league, right? You can go through free agency. Well, they're way over that number, so no free agents coming. It's going to be your Buddy Hields and your Dario Saric play types, and just your minimum guys and all that, and that doesn't work out well. You can draft said player. Well, they had a chance at Wiseman at 2, and Kuminga was at 7, and Moody was at 14, and they could have had in that space LaMelo Ball, Franz Wagner, and Sengun, the center for Houston, even one of those guys. And let's say it's LaMelo Ball instead of James Wiseman. Let's say it's Franz Wagner instead of Jonathan Kuminga, et cetera, on down the line. Even if it's one of those guys, it's different. So, yeah, one player, as you said, Christopher, and Cooper Flagg is the freshman out of Duke that everybody's salivating over. I mean, tanking 1 year, and it can set up your future. I mean, let's go to the 49ers. They had a bad year under Kyle Shanahan, a bunch of injuries. They nabbed Nick Bosa with the 2nd overall pick. That was probably worth a bad year. If you could get Cooper Flagg or somebody close to it, that could extend Steph Curry's window. We talk about it all the time. San Antonio was dead in the water, and they didn't draft Kawhi Leonard, but they made a trade with Indiana, and they get Kawhi Leonard. He extends their window. Where's their Kawhi Leonard? Maybe people think it's Kuminga, but Kuminga on his own is not going to do that. So if you want to keep Kuminga, that's fine. I have no issue with it. We've talked about it a million times. But then who else you got? Because right now, and we saw it tonight, and it's unfortunate, but Steph Curry's in his age 37 season, and I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news here especially after a loss like this, but Curry can't carry teams anymore, not for long periods of time. He can get hot. He's a great player. He's a top 10-ish kind of player in the league right now, but he needs a Batman, and he can be a Robin. He's 37. Like, at that point, like, at least the Lakers have Anthony Davis, and it's remarkable. I'm not a LeBron. Everybody knows who watches the show with any regularity that I'm not a big LeBron fan off the court, but there's no denying what kind of a player he is on the court. It's phenomenal what he's done. From the time he stepped on the court, from the time in high school that they showed him on ESPN, he's had very few transgressions, but at least the Lakers went out, traded all the assets they did. I don't know if they are better or not because of it, but they trade all the assets they did, and they get Anthony Davis. They win a fake championship. That's fine. And then they're trying to surround him with shooters, and that's just kind of what the Lakers have done. Now, they're on a little bit of a run right now under J.J. Redick. They're about 4 or 5 games over 500, and everybody's all excited in la-la land, so we'll see where that goes. But I generally think that the Lakers, the Suns, and the Warriors are kind of in the same place. The Suns right now are trying to rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic, and they're going to take Jimmy Butler on and lose Bradley Beal. I don't think that that's going to work out so well, but at least they're giving it a shot. The Warriors right now, I don't see it. We've talked about the same names over and over again. They were never in it for Jimmy Butler. I can tell you that as a fact. They were never in on Jimmy Butler. Are they kicking the tires on Zion? Yeah, they're going back and forth on it, but they've got to think to themselves, we're a great organization. We can get out of him what New Orleans hasn't. And then after that, I mean, they tried with Dennis Schroeder. I think we all knew the same thing, which was Schroeder wasn't going to be the answer. He was playing a bunch of minutes for a team that needed scorers and assist guys, and he was getting empty numbers. So that's kind of what happened in that situation. But anyway, that's a great question, Christopher. Cooper Flagg would be great. And to me, even though Steph's 37, I mean, let's just play Fantasyland for a second. Even in his age 37 season, I'd just tell Steph, take the year off. Go chill out, go get healthy. Same thing, Draymond Green. I know we're wasting a year, but we're wasting a year with you on the court, and there's wear and tear. Why doesn't everybody just go chill? We'll be terrible, and then we'll hope to get the right ping pong ball, and we get Cooper Flagg. And if Cooper Flagg is on the Warriors next year with Jonathan Kuminga and with Steph Curry, and then all of a sudden your franchise has been resurrected if he is what he's supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be LeBron James, but he's supposed to be really, really good. So, yeah, I'm saying you need a young Batman to Steph now being able to be Robin. It's like, damn, he's 37. He's 37, man. Let him be a Robin. He's not a Batman anymore. He's just sitting there going, can you get me somebody? Because, I mean, just mark my words. In the offseason, not February 6th, but in the offseason, Franz Wagner. If in the offseason that this thing doesn't change, and I don't see how it will, then I think that Steph and his reps are going to say in the most polite way ever, I'm going to come back to the organization. I'm always going to be a Warrior. I don't want this to end poorly or badly or in a bad PR situation, but get your PR people ready, get your ticket people ready, get your spin cycle ready, because I want to go win. And even though Joe would never, or the ownership group would never, ever, ever want to trade him, if Steph asks you for all the things he's done for the organization, you have to say yes. You have to say okay. You have to say okay. We'll see. So anyway, give me your thoughts. Warriors lose tonight, 123-117. We'll do a quick post game. We're about 30 minutes into this thing, and I appreciate you guys all stopping by. And remember, we'll be back at 8 a.m. in the morning on all of the normal channels. We're just doing a YouTube only tonight, but we'll be back on X and Instagram and all the podcasts, Apple, Spotify. And do remember that we have a brand new website JohnLundUnleashed.com. So every single day we put up the podcast, the YouTube shows, all the different stuff. Plus we got a blog on there. So we write a bunch of stuff on there as well. We got a whole group working with us. So JohnLundUnleashed.com, and you can look at all the social media stuff and all those kind of things. So if you do that, plus subscribe here and like, that would be absolutely tremendous. John Lund Unleashed Pod here on YouTube. What else do we have? The YouTube, you're right. The Twitter fingers will be busy after this game. Thanks, DM 2026. Yeah, I don't know what else you can say. I mean, again, you lead with injuries and say there's a lot of injuries, but to me, in this case, it's an excuse, not an explanation. You're up 17 in the first half, 8 turnovers in the third quarter. DeRozan could get wherever he wanted for most of the game, but he had 19 in the third quarter. There was no threat to Sacramento outside of Steph, and they defended like it. So he goes 1 of 5 for 2 points in the second half. Starters I talked about as well. And again, 21 and 22, 11th place in the Western Conference as we are, what's the calendar? We are February 6th is the deadline. So what is that, about 2 weeks away? So I just don't see a miraculous kind of a situation happening for the Warriors. So anyway, do not want to be negative. Do not want to be negative. But yeah, it's not a great situation, but I didn't expect it to be a whole lot different. And as I was watching the game with the 17-point lead, I was sitting there going, okay, it's the modern day NBA. It's 3-point shots and a couple of stops, and you're already back in the game. And we used to be conditioned to think that a 17-point lead was a big, big lead, but it's not. It's like an 8 or a 10-point lead now, just because if somebody gets hot, gets a couple of stops, they're right back in the game. That's another good question, Christopher. How many first-round picks? Well, that's what they're going to do. I mean, what teams have done here is it's kind of the Danny Ainge way of doing things. So if you think about it, remember when at the end of the Celtics run there, Garnett and Pierce and Ray Allen had delivered them a championship? And Danny Ainge was smart enough to say, and, in Boston, it's a little bit different because it wasn't like they had a Steph Curry that was just going to bring out the fans. Celtic fans are going to come out anyway. And I think part of 𝐬𝐝 is, we got to turn the turnstiles. What are we going to do when Steph is gone? Well, that day is coming, and you got to figure it out. But what Danny Ainge, when he was the general manager of the Celtics, thought to himself is they're coming out anyway. And so if we rebuild, because the thing is, if these guys get old right in front of our face, they're going to get pissed. So we got to do something. So what he did was he parlayed Garnett and Paul Pierce into picks. He got a ton of picks in that deal. And then he made another shrewd move, which was, remember, he had the first pick in the draft the year that he took Jason Tatum, but he flipped it with Philadelphia and he took Jason Tatum third. So he got more picks. So he had boatloads of picks, and you got to get lucky too, because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum became those picks, got some guys around him, made some shrewd trades, wins a championship. And now they're probably in a window if Porzingis can stay healthy, and did a great job getting Jrue Holiday, which was a steal. Derek White from the Spurs and Popovich. I mean, did he know that Derek White was going to turn into the two-way defender that he is? No. Jrue Holiday was an absolute steal. I don't know what Milwaukee was thinking. It really hasn't worked out with that move. And then they get Damian Lillard, and then they spin Jrue Holiday off like he's nothing. He goes to Portland and then to Boston. They did a tremendous job in getting a lot of two-way players, old guys, young guys. The two stars are in their prime, and they're going to win championships for a while. So my point in saying all that and going down that long road is that that's the type of thing that the Warriors have to do. Get into the Danny Ainge side of things and say, look, let's just get a bunch of picks. The more picks, the better. We got to get picks, near the top, and let's hope we can get guys, and other teams are stupid. Because from the recent history of the Warriors drafting, and a lot of people don't bring this up, I know you got to get lucky. I know everybody makes mistakes. We could talk about every team, every sport picking the wrong guys. So I'm not saying that anybody picks perfectly, because they just don't. But when the major problem that no one talks about with the Warriors is when you had pick 2, 7, and 14, which turned out to be, as I said, James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. And I like Moody a lot. I think that he's underutilized. I think he's going to go to another team, and I think he's going to be a solid role player in this league. I think Kuminga is going to be an all-star. I don't know that he's going to be like your number one CEO Steph kind of a player. And nobody's going to be a Steph kind of a player, but a number one that's going to lead you to championships. But you had a chance. 2, you took Wiseman instead of Ball. 7, you took Kuminga instead of Wagner. And I know a lot of people are like, well, Kuminga could be better than Wagner. He could. But right now, in terms of how it times out, in Steph's timeline, Wagner would have been a better pick than Kuminga based on the timeline, because he can play now. And then like I said, I like Moody. It's nothing against him. It's just Sengun is a guy who's an all-star caliber center who can do a lot of different things for the Rockets, and one of the reasons why they are the number 2 seed in the West. So you're not going to hit all 3 of those guys. You're just not. But if you'd hit one, if you had LaMelo Ball instead of Wiseman, or if you had Wagner, who, again, times out better with Steph than what Kuminga looks like he's going to do, then yeah, you'd be a team that might be a player away. You might be able to say, if you got LaMelo Ball, damn, let's trade, player X, and we might be able to then we get a veteran player, and you add that to this group, and all of a sudden you're looking pretty good. So do I have hope for the future that this team is going to be better? Yeah, but everybody's also got to realize that the guy making their decisions is not Mike Dunleavy. Everybody wants to rip Mike Dunleavy, and he was, people hated him as a Warriors player, and now he's not making enough moves. This is all at this point of the growth of the franchise. This is Joe Lacob. I mean, he said it, but I don't know that many people have heard it. The reason why Bob Myers left was because Bob Myers was generally sick of having Joe Lacob look over his shoulder. And that's a guy that was experienced and helped him win championships, was an agent, knew a hell of a lot about the association. And now Mike Dunleavy, who's been with the organization for a while, but is a rookie in what he's doing right now. Joe Lacob's all over him. And Joe is thinking, like he does with businesses, and sports is completely different from business. Hey, there's got to be a way around this. There's not, man. There's not. You can't spend your way out of this. You can't. I'm light years. I can't. You got to do it through the draft, smart trades, free agency's out the window because you're over that. So there's two ways to make this team better. You can trade, and there doesn't seem to be the right trade, or you can draft, and you're drafting in the middle where nobody wants to draft. You want to draft at the front of. So as Christopher said a while ago, how do you get Cooper Flag? Hey, Steph, take a vacation. Hey, Draymond, whatever it is you got going on with that calf, yeah, take a couple months off. Hey, Kuminga, man, that ankle's probably worse than we think. Why don't you just take the rest of the season off? Just do what you did for the first 15-game win season. You got the number 2 pick in the draft. You just blew the pick. Maybe you won't blow the pick this time. I don't know. Doubt it. Probably no championship with LaMelo. I'm not saying you would, but nobody's trading James Wiseman for LaMelo Ball. And I understand at the time too, because LeVar was kind of like, oh my God, do you see what he did with Lonzo? You want this guy's kid in the organization? And it was, he's playing in Australia. But I do know this. There was a lot of people around that draft that I talked to that were like, LaMelo should be the pick of 2. And it was not even close. So, and, the people are saying Dunleavy, deserves some of the blame. I'm not saying he doesn't. What I am saying is he's hamstrung and that Joe Lacob is making these decisions. Joe Lacob is the guy, because this is where we are in the progression of, or evolution, whatever you want to call it, as far as where the Warriors are. He's the one saying, okay, no more spending money. He's the one saying, okay, I will make this trade. I won't make, because, right, for example, Kuminga is the biggest asset that they have, other than Steph Curry, obviously, and maybe Draymond Green, depending on what you think you can get back from him for a team that needs veteran leadership, like Detroit. Detroit's around a 500 team right now. It's home for him. Would you want to send him back there? What could you get from Detroit? Could you get some picks from Detroit? A team that, well, they're having a solid upbringing. 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Cunningham's really, really good. And they got a couple of guys, decent guys in that team. And they have a lot of bigs that you could get back. Jalen Duren's on that team. Isaiah Stewart's on that team. And you got a number of guys that you don't need 5 bigs. You might need a veteran guy like Draymond Green. San Antonio could use a Draymond Green with their young team. There's a number of teams that Draymond Green could go to. Can I get some picks from San Antonio? Now, I know they're on the upswing, but who knows? One Victor Wembanyama injury, and they're a lottery team, and you got that pick. So, to me, that's the better way to go, is to admit that, you know what? We had a hell of a run. I mean, we had a hell of a run. People don't have runs like this. We were great. And Steph Curry is going to come back to the organization, and Draymond Green's going to come back to the organization and everything else. But for now, for the betterment, how they're saying we want to leave the organization better. We don't want to mortgage the future. Well, the best way to probably do that right now is to say in the offseason, hey, Steph Curry, we're going to move you, or you're going to want to get moved because you want to win. Or, hey, Draymond Green. Draymond Green could be a guy you could move on February 6th if you didn't think you were going anywhere. Because like I said, a San Antonio could use his veteran leadership. A Detroit could use his veteran leadership. There's a number of teams that could. And I don't know what you can get for him, but there are a number of teams that would love to have him on their team. Now, again, that it would depend on what you could get back. But while so many people are concentrating on, do they move Kuminga? I think Kuminga is going to be an all-star player in this league. There's no question. But do I think he's going to be a number 1 player that's going to lead you to a championship? I could be 100% wrong because he's 22, but I don't see that. Could be wrong. Could be 100% wrong, but I don't see that. But I'd probably rather move Draymond Green at this point, because Kuminga is going to get me who? I haven't been blown away by any of the insiders trade proposals. Maybe something will just come out of left field and we're like, damn, I never thought that guy was available, but I don't see it. Todd, you are the man. It's great to see you tonight, my friend. It says, thanks for putting the time in. I'll never forget your story back in the day selling drinks to fans to make some cash in college. If you are new to the show, I will tell that story. So we used to, I went to Utah State. It's a long story. I'll make it quick. A friend of mine, his name was Glenn Herrick. If you remember Jim Herrick, he was the head coach at UCLA, won a 1994 national championship with the O'Bannon boys. And he was going up to Utah State. We were friends. And I said, you know what? I'll go up to Utah State. Well, he left after a year. I stayed at Utah State, finished my time. Freezing ass, a kid coming from Southern California going to Utah State. But long story short is we lived right across my senior year. We lived right across from the football stadium. Utah State, not known for football, not known for anything, actually. We lived across from the football stadium, and the landlord made a massive mistake about after the first semester, I guess as we came back. So it's about this time, early January. Well, I guess we're not in early January more, but early January, he says, look, this house is going to be torn down and they're going to put apartments here, more student housing here. So I don't really care what you do to the place. And so what the first thing we did was we built a bar. We went down to like a hardware store. We built a big bar, and then we bought the cheapest vodka on the bottom. I mean, Popov, it was like Black Label. It was the worst vodka you could ever have. And then we bought Bloody Mary mix and orange juice, and we just poured drinks into really cheap cups. We didn't care. We didn't check IDs, nothing like that. And we sold Bloody Marys and screwdrivers out of our house just left and right for any type of event. So we did it during the football season. We did it for basketball because so the football stadium's here. The basketball arena is just up the hill. We did it for Friday happy hours, because back in the day, you're going to be amazed by this. There was 4 guys living in there, and I think our total rent for the year, or excuse me, not for the year, for the month was like $400 a month. So all we had to do was come up with, and it was an old rickety house, but all we had to do was come up with $400. Well, we could make $400 even back then selling drinks at like $3 a pop. We could do that on a Saturday night. So we made our rent, and then so probably a few days a week we would do that. Like I said, kids would stream down the hill for football games, stuff like that. And we'd have the table right out front. We'd have like a card table out front with just drinks on them. And for some damn reason, we never got caught. Which is amazing because you know what universities are like. Like there's cops everywhere. Like they just circle because the fraternities were right up the hill. So the police in a small college town like that, all they're doing is just circling around and around and around. And here we are with like a card table with drinks on it. A bunch of kids walking down the hill handing us money. It's like you wouldn't have to be the police officer of the year to know what the hell we're doing. But I guess they just generally left us alone because as far as I can remember, I don't remember ever getting caught. I do also remember the kids were beer bonging drinks. Like I think we offered that too for like maybe $2 or something. You could beer bong a drink or a shot, or I don't know what it was. But anyway, I just know that every Saturday we made our money back. We made our money for rent and then some. And then of course, the drunker everybody got, the more they trashed the house because we would tell them that, this house isn't going to be here anyway next fall. So they're like, oh, cool. We'll just trash your house. And so in the last couple of months, we lived in a trashed house, but it did have a nice bar because nobody wanted to mess with the bar, which we had just made out of like plywood and so forth, and a couple of shelves to put booze on because nobody wanted the bar to go away, especially the underage kids, because they're like free booze down the hill. Anyway, that's my story. Thank you for reminding me of it, Todd. Thank you for the contribution. Much, much, much appreciated. And you're one of my Lund Loyalist regulars, and it's great to see you on a night, to hang out on a night as the Warriors lose at 123-117. Yeah. Unbelievable, man. Just unbelievable. By the way, you just mentioned Papa. He's going to join the show at some point in the next little while here over the next couple of days. So anyway, yeah, we should have a beer bong segment at some point. That's a great idea, man. Good to see you, 49ers diehard. Just wanted to pop in here for a minute. So we're almost up on an hour, about 50 minutes into this thing, and I might have done as much damage as I could possibly do, but I just wanted to say hello because this morning we were talking about doing a post-game show, so we wanted to make sure that we did a post-game show today. So I think that's about it. Anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts? Again, 123-117, led by 17 at the half, as you can see on the chalkboard there. Third quarter, 8 turnovers. DeMar DeRozan gets 19 of his 32. Curry, second half, 1 of 5, 2 points. There was no one else to threaten the Kings in this game. Starters, 105-64. The Kings, second half, outscored 75-52, and now it's 21-22 for 11th place in the Western Conference. So there you go. That's what the Warriors have going on. All right, let's reconvene this whole thing. And like I said, we will do select Warriors post-game shows and just regular nighttime post-game shows once the Giants start and everything like that. But I know we have a lot of Kings fans in the audience, so I wanted to make sure that we made sure that, you know, it is kind of a rivalry thing and everything. It's a Northern California thing, so we thought we would pop on for a minute and say hello for the night show, do a little bit of Warriors work. We will be back at 8 a.m. in the morning. Be here, please, right around 8:05. I had a great conversation, by the way, with John 𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻 today. If you missed that, it's up on the YouTube channel. I separated out the interview. If you missed today's show, make sure you go back and check that out. And I also started something called the Story of the Day, which for the second consecutive day is Robert Saleh. And I've got that up there. And I also wrote about it in the blog. So I have the video and the blog if you go to johnlundunleashed.com, where we've archived all the podcasts, all the YouTube shows, and a podcast to boot on all that stuff. So you can check out everything, social media, all in one place so that I don't have to tell you to go here and go there and go here and go there. You can just get it one place, johnlundunleashed.com. So again, tomorrow at 8 a.m., we'll be back on all the regular channels, not only here on YouTube, but on X and on Instagram. You can also catch us on your favorite podcast place on Apple and Spotify. I think that is it for the night. 8 a.m. Be here tomorrow for Thursday edition of the show. Thanks for hanging out with me. Good to have you in the house as well. I just saw you in there, BSD 55, no problem. I love doing it. You know, I'd just be inside picking up or talking anyway, and my wife would be looking at me going, I don't care. I don't care about the Warriors game. And I'd be like, all right, fine. So that's what I'd be doing anyway. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it again. Thank you for the contribution. Much, much, much appreciated. JohnLundUnleashed.com. Make sure you're subscribing to the show. We will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Have a great night, despite the Warriors.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!